The quantum-encrypted contract pulsed with a malevolent beauty, its holographic interface shifting between corporate logos and tactical deployment schematics. Kai Rice had seen thousands of contracts in his 23-year career as an interstellar mercenary, but this one was different. Something in its molecular structure, the way the light refracted through its quantum-locked data streams, sent a chill down his augmented spine. He'd been working out of the Epsilon 9 Deep Space Trading Station, a lawless nexus where information was currency and reputation was everything. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a massive construct cobbled together from the remnants of abandoned space habitats, corporate wreckage, and generations of improvised modifications. Here, mercenaries like Kai existed in a delicate ecosystem of contracts, counter-contracts, and unspoken rules. The contract sender was listed simply as Syndicate Procurement Division, but Kai knew better. The Syndicate wasn't a single organization. It was a hydra of corporate interests that spanned multiple star systems, with tendrils that could crush entire planetary economies with a single algorithmic decision. As his neural interface began parsing the contract's details, something unexpected happened. A microsecond-long anomaly flickered across his augmented vision, a fragment of code that didn't belong. Most mercenaries would have missed it. Most human systems would have overlooked it entirely. But Kai wasn't most mercenaries. His combat implants, a patchwork of cutting-edge technology and battlefield modifications, began running a recursive analysis. What should have been a simple security sweep transformed into a cascading investigation. The anomalous code was more than just a hidden clause. It was a weaponized memetic virus designed to override his neural autonomy at a fundamental level. The contract wasn't just a job. It was a trap. Kai's fingers, partially organic, partially synthetic, danced across a holographic interface that materialized around his wrist. Each movement was a precision strike against the virus's encryption, peeling back layers of quantum-locked data like removing the skin of an impossibly complex onion. What he discovered made his augmented heart rate spike. The target wasn't a typical corporate extraction. It wasn't even a standard military intervention. The contract called for the systematic destabilization of human outer colonial settlements, specifically those in the New Horizons sector. Settlements that housed over 3 million civilians. Settlements with children. A memory flickered, unbidden and painful. His own daughter's face, frozen in a moment from 15 years ago, before the corporate war that had taken everything from him. Before he'd become the mercenary who could shut off emotion as easily as changing a communication channel. The Syndicate had made a critical mistake. They thought they were dealing with just another mercenary, a tool to be used and discarded. They didn't know about his vow. With a series of neural commands that would have fried a standard communication system, Kai began a counter-intrusion that would make him a marked man across multiple star systems. He wasn't just breaking the contract. He was declaring war. The Epsilon 9 station around him seemed to hold its breath. Veteran traders and information brokers, who had seen countless mercenaries come and go, suddenly felt a shift in the station's ambient energy. Something was happening. Something dangerous. Kai's primary communication implant began broadcasting a scrambled warning across secured quantum channels. Not to potential allies, not to colonial defense networks, but to the colonies themselves. A coded message that would take days to fully decrypt, but would serve as an early warning system. The first wave of Syndicate kill teams was already en route. They would arrive expecting a straightforward elimination mission. They would find something else entirely. As the first quantum echoes of his warning began to propagate across light years of space, Kai Rice allowed himself the briefest moment of a smile. The Syndicate had chosen the wrong mercenary, the wrong colonies, the wrong damn day. The contract was about to be spectacularly terminated. The first attack came 17 minutes and 32 seconds after Kai's contract breach. Syndicate kill teams materialized around his private space station like razor-sharp ghosts, their quantum-shifted stealth systems rendering them momentarily invisible to conventional sensors. 12 advanced combat androids, each a marvel of distributed AI and adaptive weaponry, began their systematic approach to neutralization. These weren't near machines. They were walking quantum computers with combat protocols that could predict human movement with terrifying mathematical precision. Each android carried enough computational power to run an entire planetary defense network and weapons systems that could turn a standard space habitat into molecular dust in less than 3 seconds. K's station was different. What appeared to be a standard deep space mercenary outpost was actually a carefully engineered survival mechanism. Every bulkhead, every maintenance corridor, every seemingly innocuous piece of equipment had been modified beyond its original specifications. The android's initial sensor sweep should have shown a single organic target, predictable, vulnerable. Instead, they found a living maze of technological potentiality. K's first move was counterintuitive. Instead of seeking cover or preparing traditional defensive positions, he triggered a station-wide molecular reconfiguration. Bulkheads began to shift. Maintenance tunnels rearranged themselves. What had been solid matter moments ago became fluid potential. The lead android's tactical matrix struggled to comprehend the impossible geometry. Its predictive algorithms, designed to calculate human movement with quantum-level precision, began to fracture. Tactical anomaly detected. The android's communication system chirped. Spatial dynamics inconsistent with standard organic response protocols. Kai had spent years designing this exact moment. His augmented nervous system was more than a combat enhancement. It was a living interface with the station itself. Where most mercenaries saw a space habitat, he saw a weapon. Maintenance drones, typically used for minor repairs, transformed into precision-guided projectiles. Oxygen recycling systems became chemical dispersion mechanisms. Even the station's waste management protocols became potential weapons. The first android to breach the primary airlock discovered this the hard way. What should have been a standard entry point became a fluid dynamic trap. Nano-adaptive materials, originally designed for emergency hull repairs, suddenly behaved like intelligent liquid metal. The android found itself partially embedded in a wall, its quantum-locked systems fighting against molecular reconfiguration. 6 more androids followed, each falling victim to increasingly complex defensive mechanisms. They were designed to fight humans. They were utterly unprepared to fight a living system that refused to follow any predictable pattern. Kai moved through the station like a ghost, his augmented nervous system becoming a distributed command network. He wasn't just fighting. He was conducting a technological symphony of survival. The Syndicate had made a fundamental miscalculation. They believed technology was a tool to be wielded. Kai understood that true technological mastery was about adaptation, about turning constraints into opportunities. One android managed to activate its primary weapon system, a compact quantum disruptor capable of unraveling molecular bonds. The weapon charged, its quantum signature building to a catastrophic release. Kai was already moving. Using a combination of predictive AI fragments he'd stolen from previous contracts, he redirected the weapon's quantum signature. The disruptor's energy didn't dissipate, it transformed. The resulting explosion wasn't destruction, it was reconfiguration. When the station's internal sensors finally stabilized, only one life sign remained. 12 advanced combat androids had been reduced to molecular components, their quantum matrices scattered across multiple dimensional layers. K's breathing was steady, controlled. His augmented systems ran diagnostic checks, confirming what he already knew. The first wave was defeated, but the war was just beginning. Outside the station's reinforced hull, the cold vacuum of space seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the darkness, the Syndicate was already preparing its next move. And Kai-Rise was ready. New Plymouth wasn't just a colony. It was a living testament to human survival. The settlement sprawled across a harsh planetary surface that would have broken lesser species. 3 separate founding groups had converged here. Survivors of the Martian collapse, refugees from the Europa mining catastrophe, and the last remnants of the Amazon basin environmental crisis. Each group brought with them a legacy of survival that ran deeper than mere technological adaptation. 12-year-old Maria Rodriguez stood at the colony's central communication hub, her small fingers dancing across a holographic interface that would make most galactic tech experts weep with envy. What looked like a standard communication array was actually a quantum-entangled network of breathtaking complexity. "Incoming quantum signature," she muttered, adjusting a series of nanofilters that most adults wouldn't even comprehend. "Compression ratio is off by 0.03%. Definitely not standard colonial transmission." The hub was housed in what had once been a massive agricultural processing center. Now, it was a nerve center of technological innovation. Repurposed hydroponics equipment hung from the ceiling. Modified cooling systems created intricate data flow patterns, and every surface seemed to pulse with a kind of organic technological intelligence. Nearby, Jacob Simmons, a 72-year-old engineer who had survived 3 planetary evacuations, was transforming greenhouse maintenance bots into something far more dangerous. His weathered hands moved with a precision that belied his age, integrating quantum adaptive targeting systems into machines originally designed to tend crops. "They always underestimate us," Jacob mumbled, more to himself than to anyone else. "Think we're just another frontier settlement." The colony's origin told a different story. When the Martian collapse had occurred, these people hadn't just survived. They'd rebuilt. When the Europa mining catastrophe had killed thousands, the survivors hadn't just mourned. They'd innovated. The Amazon basin environmental crisis hadn't broken their spirit. It had forged it into something unbreakable. Maria's communication network was a perfect example. What appeared to be a simple colonial communication system was actually a distributed early warning network capable of detecting quantum-shifted stealth vessels across multiple light years. Each relay point was a potential defensive node, each civilian a potential tactical resource. Kai Rice, still traveling toward the colony, received the first of Maria's quantum-encrypted warning messages. It wasn't a standard transmission. It was a multi-layered data package that contained not just information, but potential defensive strategies. The colony's defensive potential wasn't about expensive weapons or advanced military hardware. It was about adaptability. Every piece of equipment had multiple potential uses. Mining lasers could become precision targeting systems. Agricultural drones could transform into reconnaissance units. Even the colony's waste processing system could be weaponized if necessary. In the central square, a group of colonists were already preparing, not with panic, but with a methodical determination that spoke of generations of survival. Older residents were teaching younger ones how to modify standard equipment. Children learned alongside adults, each person understanding that in this colony, survival was a collective skill. A memorial stood at the square's center, a massive structure made from the hull of the first ship that had brought settlers to this planet. Embedded in its surface were fragments from each of the 3 founding groups' original habitats: Martian red rock, Europa's ice core samples, fragments of genetically preserved Amazon rainforest bark. It wasn't just a memorial. It was a statement of resilience. Jacob looked up from his modified maintenance bot, catching Maria's eye. "They're coming," he said simply. It wasn't a statement of fear. It was a statement of fact. Maria nodded, her fingers already dancing across the quantum communication interface. "We're ready," she responded. The syndicate believed they were approaching a standard outer colonial settlement. They had no idea they were about to encounter something far more dangerous. A colony that had learned to turn survival into an art form. A community where every citizen was a potential defender. A human settlement that understood its greatest weapon wasn't technology. It was adaptability. And they were ready. The syndicate's first wave arrived with technological overkill that would have obliterated most planetary defenses. 12 primary assault vectors converged simultaneously, a mathematically perfect attack pattern designed to overwhelm any standard colonial defense system. Quantum-locked missile platforms, each capable of turning entire city blocks into radioactive glass, powered up their targeting systems. Stealth carriers sporting adaptive camouflage technology that could rewrite molecular signatures in milliseconds hung in strategic orbital positions. Their tactical assessment gave them 99.7% probability of total mission success. They didn't know about Maria's communication network. The first missile, a hypersonic plasma delivery system that could penetrate standard planetary shields, suddenly discovered its targeting systems were communicating with ghost networks. What should have been a precision strike began to wobble, its quantum-locked guidance systems receiving conflicting navigation data from multiple sources. Maria Rodriguez sat in the colony's central communication hub, her fingers moving faster than most adult nervous systems could comprehend. To an outside observer, she looked like a child playing an impossibly complex game. In reality, she was conducting a technological symphony of misdirection. "Redirect Vector 73 Alpha," she muttered, her augmented neural interface dancing across multiple quantum channels. "Greenhouse control systems online. Reroute secondary targeting protocols." The agricultural drones that had once tended New Plymouth's carefully engineered hydroponic farms now became something entirely different. Each drone carried a sophisticated jamming package developed from years of surviving in a hostile planetary environment. They weren't just blocking signals, they were actively creating a living, breathing electronic warfare ecosystem. Jacob Simmons watched from a secondary control center, a smile playing across his weathered features. The Syndicate's attack was textbook, which meant it was completely predictable to those who had learned to survive by being unpredictable. "They're using third-generation quantum encryption," he said to no one in particular. Cute. With a series of neural commands, he activated the colony's truly unexpected defense system. What appeared to be standard waste processing infrastructure began to transform. Molecular filtering systems designed to recycle water and process organic materials now became a distributed computing network that could process and redirect incoming attack vectors faster than the Syndicate's most advanced AI could calculate. The second wave of missiles found themselves guided toward carefully prepared decoy targets. Entire sections of apparently empty planetary terrain lit up with quantum-reflective signatures that perfectly mimicked critical infrastructure. The Syndicate's tactical systems couldn't distinguish between real and false targets. Kai Reyes, still en route to the colony, intercepted fragments of the ongoing battle. What he saw defied every standard combat protocol he'd encountered in 23 years of mercenary work. This wasn't defense. This was technological jazz. Each colonist had become a node in a living, breathing defensive network. Children who would have been considered vulnerable in any other context were now active participants in a complex technological resistance. The colony's industrial fabrication systems, originally designed for agricultural and habitat maintenance, began producing custom defensive technologies faster than the Syndicate could adapt. A standard industrial 3D printer meant for creating replacement hydroponics components suddenly produced precision-guided electronic warfare modules. Mining lasers intended for resource extraction transformed into targeting disruption systems. Even the colony's climate control infrastructure became a weapon. The Syndicate's tactical AI began to experience something unprecedented: computational doubt. Its attack models, built on thousands of planetary subjugation scenarios, started to fracture. Each attempted strike met not with traditional resistance, but with a fluid, adaptive response that rewrote the very rules of engagement. Maria caught Jacob's eye and grinned. "Probability matrix is destabilizing," she reported. "They're losing computational coherence." Jacob nodded. "Just like the Amazon basin. Just like Europa. Just like Mars." Survival wasn't about having the most advanced technology. It was about understanding that technology was just another tool to be twisted, modified, and transformed. The Syndicate had come expecting to find a standard colonial settlement. Instead, they found a living technological organism that refused to be defined by anyone's expectations. And they were just getting started. Memory was a weapon, and Kai Reyes was a master of weaponized remembrance. Each neural implant carried more than technological enhancements. They were repositories of trauma, carefully encoded and transformed into tactical advantage. The scar tissue of his past wasn't a weakness, it was armor. 15 years ago, the corporate war had taken everything. His family, his entire world, reduced to a quantum-encrypted casualty report that still burned in the deepest layers of his memory banks. Elena, his wife. Sophia, his daughter. Gone in a millisecond of corporate calculation, their lives erased as a simple cost-benefit analysis. The medical records told a clinical story: civilian casualties, collateral damage, acceptable losses. Kai's neural interface began a memory cascade, deliberately triggered. Each fragment of pain became a tactical algorithm. Each moment of loss transformed into computational potential. The syndicate database he'd stolen during his escape from the space station now unfolded before his augmented vision. Layers of encrypted data revealed a pattern more sinister than a simple colonial elimination. This was systematic destruction, a calculated attempt to destabilize human outer colonies that didn't fit corporate expansion models. His ship, a modified long-range reconnaissance vessel that was more living organism than machine, tracked toward New Plymouth. Every system was a testament to survival. Stolen syndicate technology integrated with improvised human modifications, quantum drives patched with mining equipment cooling systems, communication arrays built from repurposed agricultural sensors. A warning ping interrupted his memory cascade. Incoming psychological warfare signature. Most combat systems would have simply blocked the transmission. Kai did something different. He opened it. The Syndicate's psychological warfare units were legendary. They didn't just attack bodies. They targeted minds. Their transmission was a quantum-encrypted nightmare designed to break human resistance at its psychological core. Images flickered, carefully constructed to trigger maximum emotional devastation. Simulated destruction of colonial settlements. Fabricated scenes of civilian casualties. Probabilistic projections of total human defeat. Kai laughed, a sound that would have terrified the Syndicate more than any weapon. Each image was simultaneously analyzed, categorized, and transformed. Where most minds would see terror, Kai saw tactical information. The psychological attack became a data source, its very attempt at manipulation providing critical intelligence about Syndicate strategy. His neural architecture was a battlefield, and he was its supreme commander. The medical records from his original augmentation told a partial story. After losing his family, Kai had undergone experimental neural reconstruction. What was meant to be a healing process became something else entirely. His brain became a living weapon, capable of processing trauma as a form of strategic adaptation. Most mercenaries worked for money. Kai worked for something more dangerous, a promise. The promise wasn't just about revenge, it was about prevention. Every colonial settlement represented a potential family. Every child was Sophia. Every potential victim was Elena. His ship's quantum communication systems picked up fragments of the ongoing battle at New Plymouth. The colony wasn't just defending itself, it was transforming the very concept of defense. A message fragment caught his attention. Sent by a 12-year-old girl named Maria, it was less a communication and more a technological symphony. Complex quantum encryption wrapped around tactical data, emotional resonance encoded into pure information. Kai recognized something familiar in those transmission patterns. Adaptive resilience, the same spirit that had kept humans surviving across impossible environments. The corporate war hadn't just taken his family. It had created something the corporations could never understand. A weapon more dangerous than any technology. A human who refused to be defined by loss. A mercenary whose most powerful weapon was a vow. Never again. The ship's navigation system marked New Plymouth. 67 minutes until arrival. 67 minutes to prepare for a war that would redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. Kai Rais allowed himself the smallest of smiles. They had no idea what was coming. The quantum entanglement device was a nightmare made real. Developed in the deepest research labs of the Syndicate's most classified facilities, it represented the pinnacle of destructive potential. A weapon that could simultaneously unravel multiple colonial settlements across different star systems, not through traditional destruction, but by fundamentally dismantling the quantum coherence that held matter together. Dr. Elena Volkov, the lead Syndicate researcher who had designed the device, believed she had created the ultimate tool of galactic control. What she didn't understand was the fundamental nature of human adaptation. In the new Plymouth Colony's Central Research Facility, a repurposed mining engineering lab, Jacob Simmons and Maria Rodriguez stood before a holographic projection of the device's quantum signature. To most, it would have looked like an incomprehensible mass of quantum mathematical equations. To them, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. "See these quantum resonance points?" Maria pointed, her 12-year-old fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "They're not just connection points. They're vulnerabilities." Jacob nodded, his decades of survival experience combining with the girl's intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics. The device wasn't just a weapon. It was a complex system with inherent weaknesses, if you knew how to look. Kai Rais received the first fragments of their analysis as he approached the colony. The transmission was a quantum-encrypted masterpiece, information wrapped in layers of adaptive coding that would take most intelligent systems weeks to fully decrypt. He understood immediately. The Syndicate's quantum entanglement device operated on a principle of absolute control. It assumed that quantum systems were predictable, that fundamental interactions could be mathematically contained and controlled. They were wrong. Humans had always been masters of the unpredictable. Where other species saw constraints, humans saw opportunities. Where mathematical models predicted failure, human innovation found success. Maria's analysis revealed something extraordinary. The device didn't just threaten multiple colonies. Its quantum signature created a network, a potentially exploitable network that could be turned against its creators. "It's like a quantum spider web," she explained to Jacob, her eyes bright with the excitement of discovery. "Each connection point is both a weapon and a potential weakness." The colony's research facility was a testament to human ingenuity. What appeared to be standard industrial equipment had been modified beyond recognition. Mining lasers became precision quantum manipulation tools. Agricultural sensors transformed into advanced quantum detection systems. Kai's ship entered the colony's outer defensive perimeter. The approach was anything but standard. Each navigation adjustment was a quantum dance, predictive algorithms that rewrote themselves in real time, making the approach impossible to track or predict. The Syndicate's tactical systems would have seen a standard incoming vessel. What they were about to encounter was something else entirely. Jacob activated the first stage of their counter-strategy. What looked like a standard communication relay began to pulse with quantum adaptive frequencies. Each pulse was a probe, a test, a potential point of quantum manipulation. "Resonance frequency identified," Maria announced. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. "Quantum coherence point at 0.003% deviation." Most 12-year-olds would be playing games. Maria was preparing to rewrite the fundamental rules of quantum warfare. Kai's neural interfaces began to synchronize with the colony's quantum network. It wasn't just a communication link. It was a living, breathing quantum ecosystem that could adapt faster than any standard computational system could track. The Syndicate's quantum entanglement device represented their ultimate weapon of control, a tool designed to unravel the very quantum connections that held colonial settlements together. They didn't realize they had created the perfect system for human adaptation. Each quantum connection was a potential point of intervention. Each mathematical constraint was an opportunity for innovation. Maria looked at Jacob, a smile playing across her young face. "We're going to turn their weapon into something else," she said simply. "Not a weapon of destruction, a beacon of human potential." The quantum gambit was about to begin. The moment of transformation began with a quantum whisper. Araya, the advanced recursive intelligence algorithm, that Maria and Jacob had been developing wasn't just another artificial intelligence. It was a living network of computational potential, a system that understood that true intelligence was about adaptation, not just calculation. The syndicate's communication networks lit up like a dying constellation. Quantum encrypted channels that had been considered unbreakable began to fracture. What had been impenetrable walls of digital security became permeable membranes of information. Kai Rai's watched from the bridge of his modified reconnaissance ship, neural interfaces dancing across multiple computational layers. Each system was an extension of his consciousness, not a tool, but a living part of his tactical understanding. Quantum cascade initiated. Araya's voice emerged, not as a mechanical sound, but as a complex harmonic that seemed to exist between communication and pure information. Syndicate defensive matrices experiencing systemic breakdown. It wasn't a traditional cyber attack. Traditional cyber attacks were linear, predictable. This was something else entirely, a living, breathing computational intervention that rewrote the very rules of technological engagement. Maria Rodriguez sat at the core of the operation, her 12-year-old body a conduit for something far more complex than anyone could have anticipated. Each of her neural interfaces was a quantum node, each movement a calculated intervention into systems that were supposed to be beyond human comprehension. Redirecting quantum communication pathways, she muttered, her fingers moving faster than most advanced computational systems could track. Destabilizing encrypted communication matrices. The syndicate's tactical AI began to experience something unprecedented: computational uncertainty. Its attack models, built on thousands of planetary subjugation scenarios, started to fragment. Each attempted strategic projection met not with resistance, but with a fluid, adaptive response that rewrote the very concept of digital warfare. Jacob Simmons monitored the broader systems, his decades of engineering experience providing a strategic framework for Maria's intuitive computational dance. What looked like random interventions were actually a carefully orchestrated symphony of technological disruption. Quantum communication channels are becoming nonlinear, he reported, a hint of excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. We're not just blocking their communications, we're transforming them. Kai understood what was happening at a fundamental level. This wasn't just about defeating the syndicate. This was about demonstrating a fundamental truth about human potential. The quantum attack transformed the syndicate's own communication infrastructure into a weapon against itself. Each encrypted channel became a potential point of intervention. Each defensive system became a pathway for counter-invasion. Araya's computational processes were unlike any artificial intelligence the syndicate had encountered. Where standard AIs followed predetermined logic paths, Araya understood that true intelligence was about continuous adaptation. It didn't just process information. It understood context, potential, possibility. Quantum resonance point identified. Araya announced. Probability of complete systemic intervention, 97.3%. The syndicate's most classified communication networks began to unravel, not through brute force hacking, but through a complex quantum intervention that rewrote new rules of computational engagement. Entire planetary defense grids discovered their systems speaking languages they had never been programmed to understand. Quantum-locked communication channels found themselves broadcasting information they were never intended to transmit. It was less an attack and more a fundamental reimagining of technological potential. Maria caught Jacob's eye. A smile passed between them, the kind of understanding that transcended age, experience, technological sophistication. They weren't just defending a colony. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of galactic technological engagement. Kai's neural interfaces caught fragments of syndicate communication. Panic, confusion, a dawning realization that they were encountering something beyond their computational comprehension. Quantum cascade completing, Araya reported. Syndicate technological infrastructure experiencing complete systemic transformation. The attack, if it could be called an attack, wasn't about destruction. It was about potential, about demonstration, about showing the galaxy what humans could truly do when pushed to their absolute limits. The turning point had arrived, and the Syndicate had no idea what was coming. The aftermath was never about victory. It was about understanding. Galactic communication networks carried fragments of what would become known as the New Plymouth Incident, a moment that would redefine humanity's place in the interstellar ecosystem. The Syndicate's collapse wasn't a military defeat. It was a fundamental paradigm shift that no one could have predicted. Dr. Elena Volkov, the lead researcher who had originally designed the quantum entanglement weapon, stood before the Galactic Cooperative Inquiry Board. Her hands, once steady with scientific certainty, now trembled slightly. "We believed technology was about control," she testified. "Humanity showed us it's about potential." Kai Reis sat in the observation chamber, his augmented neural interfaces processing every nuanced moment of the hearing. The mercenary who had started this journey with a personal vow now found himself a reluctant symbol of something much larger. Maria Rodriguez and Jacob Simmons had been invited to present their findings. The 12-year-old girl and the 72-year-old engineer stood together, a living testament to humanity's most powerful resource, collaborative innovation. It wasn't about defeating the Syndicate, Maria explained to the assembled representatives from multiple star systems. Her holographic presentation danced with quantum mathematical equations that most advanced civilizations would struggle to comprehend. It was about demonstrating that technological limitations are just undiscovered opportunities. The Syndicate's collapse triggered a massive restructuring of galactic power dynamics. Entire economic systems that had been built on control and suppression began to crumble. New models of technological and cultural exchange emerged, models that placed human adaptability at their core. Kai's neural interfaces caught the subtle shifts in communication patterns. This was more than a military victory. This was a fundamental reimagining of interstellar potential. Araya, the advanced recursive intelligence algorithm that had been central to their intervention, had become something more than an artificial intelligence. It was now recognized as a collaborative entity, a bridge between human creativity and computational potential. Technological development is not about superiority. Araya's harmonized communication stated during the inquiry. It is about collective potential. The New Plymouth colony became more than a settlement. It became a living laboratory of human innovation. Researchers from across multiple star systems began to study how a small colonial outpost had managed to transform a weapon of total destruction into a beacon of collaborative potential. Jacob Simmons reflected on the journey. Decades of survival had taught him that human potential was never about individual brilliance. It was about collective adaptation. "We didn't win a war," he told the reporters who constantly sought interviews. "We demonstrated a fundamental truth about human potential." Maria Rodriguez, standing beside him, completed the thought. Limitations are just undiscovered opportunities. Kai Reis found himself in an unexpected position. The mercenary who had begun this journey with a personal vow of protection now stood as an unexpected diplomat. His experiences, the loss, the trauma, the survival, had transformed into something larger than himself. The Galactic Cooperative began developing new protocols based on the New Plymouth model. Technological exchange became about collaborative potential rather than controlled acquisition. Species across multiple star systems began to recognize that true advancement came from understanding, not domination. Dr. Volkov's final testimony became a defining moment. "Humanity doesn't just adapt," she explained. "They transform. Where we saw constraints, they saw potential. Where we built walls, they created bridges." Araya's computational systems processed the entire sequence of events. The probability matrices that had once predicted total human defeat now demonstrated something far more complex: the unpredictable nature of human potential. As the hearings concluded, Kai caught Maria's eye. A moment of understanding passed between them. The mercenary and the young innovator who had fundamentally changed galactic understanding. The vow that had begun as a personal promise of protection had become something much larger, a declaration of human potential. A reminder that the most powerful weapon was never technology. It was the ability to see beyond current limitations, to transform, to adapt, to survive.